in London and attend a reception and be a little bit sort of social and networky. And what was really interesting there was the popularity that London has internationally, particularly with Middle Eastern clients, which New York doesn't. It's interesting. It's the flow, if you like, is very much Middle East to London, and
Interesting.
then education culture. Are you seeing that with Middle Eastern clients that they crop onto
We,
your list?
as a firm, we've looked after some of our Middle Eastern families for generations. We have very strong links. So yes, and I think for various families, I'm on purchase number, 6, 7, 8 for different members of the family, and you go with them through their journey of that first student flat to then them settling and upgrading to the townhouse, which is a really lovely part to be in. One of the things that can be tricky with them, just looking at those works that we were talking about, the alterations, the consents, is they they will. And I used to say you don't need it in London, but I think I've changed my mind during this heat wave. But they will always want to have air conditioning, and working through the lease alterations. Restrictions, as well as there's sometimes a London estate that has controls over what can be done externally, as well as the planning system, can be quite complex and quite a lot for people to get their heads around. I think they're used to saying, but I own it, so I can do what I want with it. And our system's quite different to that. It's the same with wooden floors or owning pets or anything that might cause a nuisance or a disturbance to your neighbours. And each lease has different wording, different provisions, and
Yeah.
a slightly
Yeah.
different set of facts to consider. So we spend a lot of time advising particularly international families who have a very fixed idea. As Laurie said, we may be working with their existing team of local interior designers, and we will then bring in local UK advice on what, for example, can be done in a listed building, whilst wanting to be sympathetic to the design and creativity that their local designers might be wanting to bring. So we have good fun with our international clients because there's always something, but we will always try and find out what it is they're buying the property for, what their plans are for the property, whether they do want to make any changes, because that's really key to the advice that we're then able to give them.
Those are all excellent points. I mean, we do a ton of property management in London. In fact, we probably do more property management than anything else at the moment over there. And it's often for Middle Eastern clients or American clients who have bought properties for kids and kept them, or buy more or upgrade sometimes, which is great. Your point about designers and sort of building regulations and management control are really well made, because if you can pick those up at a really early stage, so you're working with a client, you guys are working with clients who are buying something, then they want to strip it out and they want to put it back together again. You have to think about things like wooden floors, and the transmission of noise and decibels and stuff like that, which is sort of grist to my mill. To most people, they're sort of halfway asleep at that stage. But they're critical, because then if you don't get it right, you end up with neighbor disputes, and that can even head to litigation. So you've just got to know what you're doing. You've got to think ahead of the game. You've got to understand how buildings work, how law works, or the relevant parts of law to the real estate you're dealing with. Um, and again, here it's slightly different in that you have things called boards, which you guys know very well because we've met in New York and we've met in London a number of times. And I know, Laura, you're a huge New York fan. You're popping. I'm not sure you're popping as much as you used to, but it's just lovely when you meet someone who's sort of so familiar with the city as well. And here you have to deal with boards, and boards are a law unto themselves. And these are for co-ops and condos, apartment blocks, basically, modern apartment blocks, or old apartment blocks. And they're an absolute nightmare. I mean, they want to know everything about you that you can possibly imagine, and a few things that you probably can't imagine. They still like to know about you and your kids. So, and in that way, I think actually the British system is actually a bit easier. because yes, you know you have freeholds and you leaseholds, but you know the fundamentals of property in UK and US are actually still the fee simple. And when that cropped up, when I was starting here doing all my US property exams and stuff like that, I was so surprised. I thought, oh, I know all about that. But you know, from there, then the paths diverse. Then the paths diverse. So this has been a great chat. Any hot tips ahead? Anything on the horizon that our audience should be getting excited about or looking forward to? Um,
I mean, I think that there are changes afoot. Some we know more about than others, but from a kind of legal and sort of strategic perspective, I think we should expect some continuing change in the sort of London and UK market. We've got relatively significant or very significant changes to the leasehold regime. There's increasing, regulation. We've had significant changes to building safety and processes around that. And I think obviously we're at a time with a new prime minister here for changes potentially to planning and the tax regime. I mean, our current prime minister has said for many years that he has strong views in relation to the SDLT, so stamp duty land tax regime, which is the tax you pay on acquisition of the property, a one-off tax. And he has long said that that system should be changed to a land tax. Fortunately, for stability and certainty, he's confirmed that he doesn't intend to change that regime in the budget that will take place in October of this year. But if people are listening to this after then, I think all bets are off as to whether or not, SDLT will change. It's been one of the most contested parts of the market for some time. And I think all of that, at the risk of being sort of self-serving, shows that it's important to get advice. Laura spoke about, getting to exchange of contracts, and speed is important, but I think informed speed as to how to do a deal is really key. And then one of the other things that I might hand over to Laura to tell you something about is just how to buy here and structures. Americans are very familiar with their LLC structures, buying things through a structure and holding real estate in that way. And that's something that we're often asked about at the beginning of a.
well, that's absolutely great, and I got to say, I think we're sort of cut from the same mold on that one. Um, I've always thought personally that London, prime London property in particular, is always about one enjoying it if you're buying it to live in it. I mean, that's what it's about.